Hi, everyone. Welcome to Hope Talks. I am your host, Catherine, and I want to first of all say thank you for joining us today. If you've joined us before, welcome back. If this is your first time, welcome and thank you. I think today's conversation, as always, is going to be really great. So I'm going to give everyone just a little bit of time to get settled and join. Please leave us comments, questions. Let us know that you're here. Just say hi, or let us know where you're viewing from. We just want to know who's here while we wait. And also, if you could share this video, that would be very helpful as well, and making sure that we can reach as many people as possible today. There should be a share button in the bottom right-hand corner of the stream. So if you just click that, you can share it onto your page. So as I said, I'm your host, Catherine Newman. I'm the Development and Communications Coordinator at Southside Center of Hope. If you're not familiar with our agency, Southside Center of Hope is a nonprofit recovery home for women in Chicago. We provide housing and supportive services for single women and women with children who are experiencing homelessness and are in recovery from addiction. And what we're doing today is called Hope Talks. It's our monthly live stream that we have every month on the third Monday of each month at 1 o'clock Central Time. And the purpose of a Hope Talks is to be able to share community resources and have really important conversations around topics that impact our community, whether that be, the community of women that we serve or our local Chicago community. We're trying to just really, have some very impactful conversations on important topics that are relevant to us and hopefully also are relevant to you all as viewers. So today I will be joined by, our guest today will be Ida Melbye from the Period Collective. The Period Collective is a nonprofit organization that is committed to supplying feminine hygiene products to homeless women and low-income women in the greater Chicago area. She'll be joining us today to discuss period poverty because in the month of May, we do have Period Poverty Awareness Week. And so we have dedicated this live stream to period poverty awareness. So we'll be talking with Ida about period poverty, what it is, also what the Period Collective does, and how we can all work together to create equitable access to feminine care products, because there are so many women who struggle every month to get the hygiene products that they need to, manage their periods, their menstrual cycles. So I am going to bring in Ida now, but before I do that, I just want to say thank you again for joining us. If you haven't already, please leave a comment, share the stream with your network. We would really appreciate that so we can connect to as many people as possible. And feel free to leave any questions you might have in the comments. It's a little difficult for me to monitor them while I'm live, but I do look at them immediately after the stream. So any questions you might have, we will be able to get those answered. So let me go ahead and see if I can get Ida here. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I already did a brief introduction about our topic today,
Okay.
is period poverty. But I want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit more because this is your area of expertise. not so much mine. So, so that's kind of where I want to start the conversation. Period poverty refers to, um, the very prevalent phenomena that many women are unable to afford the products that they need to manage their menstrual cycle, such as pads, tampons, liners. And that's my understanding, but you might have a greater understanding. So I'm hoping you can share that with us.
No, I think that's a great definition of it. We also like to include access to washing facilities and waste management because it can be really hard to manage your period properly without those things. So, no, I think you had a very good definition of it.
And so I guess that kind of leads me to my next question. Um, you know, for women and girls who experience period poverty, um, you know, what what does that really look like? What happens? What are they using, in lieu of actually having access to those feminine hygiene products? How does that kind of really impact their lives when they can't get pads or tampons or liners when they need them?
Yeah, I mean, what we see is they're using, whatever they can get their hands on, which is typically some, rolled up toilet paper, maybe a donated sock that they might have gotten from a shelter. They might use a rag, maybe a diaper if they have kids, but then there's short diapers for their children. They might use paper towels or even like plastic bags or newspapers that they get out of the trash can. Oftentimes, they're taking care of their needs in a dirty gas station bathroom or maybe in a shelter where they may not feel safe. And what we see too is that if they can get their hands on product, they will use them much longer than they're intended for. And that can lead to infections and other health issues.
Yeah. And so what do you think, or what do you see as being, some of the root causes of period poverty?
I think in the US, lack of access and lack of income are, like the two big root causes. We see that women are often forced to choose between buying pads and other necessities like food. And lack of access can be situations where, the individual is homeless, or it can be to living in an area where there's limited access to, pharmacies and grocery stores, food deserts, as we call them. But it can also be, a family situation where those in charge are not supplying the product that's needed. It can be due to lack of income. It can be a neglect and abuse situation. It can be households where there aren't any adult women, where the kids are not comfortable asking for products that they need. For example, a single dad raising daughters, things like that. Another cause we feel is poor menstrual education.
Yeah.
Yeah, some girls and women, they really kind of lack that necessary education and the information about menstruation and good hygiene practices, because maybe the topic isn't discussed in their family, or the school education is very limited, and it just depends on the school you attend. So some girls, they may experience menstruation with very little knowledge or information about what's happening to them. And so that, of course, makes it harder for them to, adopt sanitary practices because they just may not know what that looks like. And there's also an issue of kind of like a forced secrecy in some communities, where girls are, have to be really careful about managing their blood flow and their discomfort. And it's expected of them to hide it from boys and men. And, if a man is in charge of a household where this is the situation, it might be unacceptable to request money for products, things like that. And then another cause is imprisonment. And we see that those in prison may have very limited or inconsistent access to products.
Wow. Yeah. I never really thought about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is not a topic that I'm an expert on, but, we see that, product can be used, kind of as a discipline tool where, you might be rewarded for good behavior or taken away. for bad behavior, or things like that, like very manipulative access to period products.
And so, do you think that there is like a certain demographic um, of women and girls who are the most impacted by period poverty? All the examples that you just gave, it seems kind of like a very, wide variety. But I'm just curious, if you see, like I said, a specific demographic being the most affected or in the most in need of support.
Yeah, and with women and girls, I would like to include also transgender and non-binary individuals, because they are more likely to experience period poverty. But mostly, homeless and low-income individuals, people of color. We do see that in those. We work in the Chicago area, so in the Southside, the West Side, where we know there's a lot of poverty. We know that those are mostly Black and brown communities where that's happening, but having said that, this is common everywhere. So yeah. And right now, due to COVID, there are so many women that have had to leave the workforce. So it's kind of a double impact on women right now.
So I'm curious, kind of what I understand. I think we've got a grasp on I guess kind of the physical impact. I want to talk a little bit about the emotional impact that people would experience just from, not being able to manage their menstrual cycle with dignity, having to wonder, what am I going to use? Where am I going to get it? Am I going to get an infection? What kind of a toll does that take on a person's kind of everyday life?
Yeah, it's rough, because I think anybody that has a period can can kind of imagine what that's like to not have the product that you need. But to be in that situation and experience that month after month, it really takes a toll on somebody's mental health. And the shame of not being able to take care of something so basic for yourself or for your teenager. It can really, it can take a toll on your confidence and your sense of dignity, as you said, and really have that impact on the mental health. So, so that is really tough. But it also, when you don't have the product you need, it means that you're not really able to fully participate in life. It makes it hard to go to work or to school, because how can you really be effective in a job interview or on the SATs or during just a regular school day if you're worried about bleeding through your clothes? The research shows that 1 in 4 teens in the US has missed school because they didn't have the product that they needed. And here in Chicago public schools, 82% of students are low income. So this is having a huge impact on individuals right here in our community.
Mm-hmm.
And we see also that, when you're missing school or work, it reinforces that cycle of poverty, and that if you're missing school, it puts you behind academically. Missing work can mean that you're being laid off. And if a girl misses school every time she has a period, it sets her back 145 days compared to her male classmates.
Yeah.
And, it can force her to miss out on other important confidence building activities, just not just in the classroom, but in sports, in extracurricular activities. And it can really limit the potential for a girl really far beyond puberty.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to sit in school and worry about what's going on in your body and maybe not have all the information that you need. And worry about being made fun of because you don't have the protection that you need. And you won't be able to focus on what you're learning, and then you will struggle with your tests, and this will affect your GPA. And then ultimately that will affect your ability to get into college. And so, you can be disadvantaged really for the rest of your life if you start missing school when your period starts. And it can start as early as 9 years old. So the cumulative effect of kind of missing school regularly, starting in late elementary or middle school, it can be devastating. But we know that, period poverty doesn't happen in a vacuum. Those that can't afford period products, they almost always struggle to afford other necessities as well. And so for students that live in poverty, and they're lacking other basic needs such as housing or food or clothing, this often comes with adults that are not available to monitor or help with homework or e-learning now. They might be busy working multiple jobs. They might be standing in line in food pantries. They might have addiction or mental health issues that are really preventing them from being there for their kids. And another thing I feel like we don't really talk about that often is how expensive it is being poor. You might not have the money or the transportation to be able to get to a Costco or a Walmart to buy your period products in bulk. And if you have to buy it at the corner store, it's going to be much more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And this is true for other products and food as well. So there are many layers to it, but if you don't have your basic needs covered, it's very hard to be a successful student. If you don't have housing, you show up tired. If you don't have food, you show up hungry. You're wondering when you will eat next. If you don't have broadband, you maybe didn't get your homework done. Mm-hmm. And one reason that some under-researched kids don't show up to school that we don't really hear about very often is that they don't have clean clothes and they're ashamed of it. Mm-hmm. They might not have a place to wash their clothes, and the adults in their lives might not be paying close enough attention. And girls that don't have adequate products to take care of their period, they do often stain their clothes. So this becomes an issue, on top of all of the other issues that really impacts a girl's ability to be in school. So, and all of this really is the same in a work situation. If you're not as productive if you're hungry or tired or worried about where your basic needs will be met. And so this can lead to you being fired or failing to get promoted. And then this cycle of poverty just continues. And period products, it's a basic need. And it's part of that, having those basic needs met that mean that you can fully function in life.
So you had mentioned, we've been talking about why girls might miss school if they don't have the products that they need. And it just made me think because, I remember when I was growing up, you could always go to the nurse's office, and get a pad if you needed one. But I'm just curious, I haven't thought about that until this moment. And just knowing that our school system is not funded the same way it used to be. Many schools don't have a nurse 5 days a week. So do you see, does that still exist? Are schools offering any kind of support for girls in that way? Or do you think that that's kind of just gone out with some of that, funding, health, I guess it's kind of healthcare funding, but the nurses are gone. Does that mean that that kind of help that used to be available is also gone?
Yeah, we hear from schools all the time. And sometimes it's individual teachers that will reach out, or sometimes it's a nurse that will reach out. And most of the time, I would say most of the time, product is available somewhere in the school building. It could be in the main office, it could be in the nurse's office. Mm-hmm. But it's tough for kids because some are not comfortable going to the nurse or going to the front office asking for a product. And it's not guaranteed that it's there. But in 2018, the Learn with Dignity Act was passed in Illinois, and it requires middle and high schools to have product in their bathroom for girls to have access to. And
for free, or is it like a quarter machine, or is it free?
It's free. It has to be provided for free. Unfortunately, what we see is that the act was not funded, so a lot of the schools can't afford to purchase the dispensers or purchase the product that they need for the girls. And unfortunately, what we see, this is not a problem in the more wealthier parts of Chicago, or the more wealthier parts of the suburbs. This is what we see in the schools that need it the most. So I would say it's a problem. And right now with COVID, even those kids that were able to get some product when they were at school, they might not have been at school for a long period of time and not have access to the product, the very few items that they might have gotten at school. So I would say it's very much still a problem. It's, that the act was great, but unfortunately it's not, nobody's following up to make sure that the schools are doing it. And for a school that's already, struggling to get school supplies to their teachers, how are they going to prioritize?
You mentioned earlier wanting to be inclusive of trans women and non-binary people as we're having this discussion. And that is something that I wanted to talk about. I saw a quote that really spoke to me. The quote says, "We often do not speak up enough for trans women. It is essential that when we talk about period poverty, we keep in mind that not all menstruators are women and not all women menstruate." So I just wanted to share that. And then I guess, kind of give you an opportunity to speak a little bit more, on that, and just, what those unique experiences might be for trans people and non-binary folks as they are experiencing period poverty.
Yeah, I want to start by saying this is not my area of expertise, but we do know that these groups do struggle with period poverty more than the regular populations. And, there's a lot of stigma and bias and challenges involved for transgender individuals. They're marginalized in so many different ways. And there's a general, I think, lack of knowledge in, kind of our society as a whole. And there's a lack of knowledge in the medical community. And so these individuals are struggling, to find adequate medical care, and they're struggling to have access to, services that are easier to access for others. That could be, appropriate mental health care. It could be access to a shelter. Will you be able to go to an all-women's shelter? For a trans man that menstruates, in a men's shelter, there will not be any product available for that person. It might not be safe for that person to be there. There might not be a private area where they can take care of their period. And so they might choose not to go to a shelter and handle it on the street, which is not safe for that individual. So you think about kind of all the struggles that a transgender individual faces on a daily basis, and then you throw in trying to access period products or, care around periods or information even about periods. And the stigma of not being somebody maybe that looks like a typical person that menstruates, or looking like a person that menstruates but don't have a period. It can be really a devastating struggle, for a trans woman. Without a period, they might feel like they're not fully female. We often hear when somebody gets their period, they become a woman. And so for those that identify as female but don't menstruate, that can be very tough. It can feel very, they can feel very excluded. So again, this is not an area where I have a ton of expertise, but we know that this population really struggles with period poverty, and they really struggle with, periods in general.
Yeah. Another thing that I found when I was doing a bit of research, preparing for our conversation, was that you actually cannot purchase period supplies with an EBT card. So that's like, food stamps, government aid. And, also these types of products are not covered by health insurance or Medicaid, even though, I think it would be very easy to argue that these are health care supplies. Um, so, I guess I wanted to get your insight on, if you think there might be a chance um, that could change at some point. I mean, do you see any lawmakers or even just, public figures kind of getting, at making any headway on actually, identifying period poverty as, somewhat of a health crisis and getting some additional support from whether it be government aid or, through healthcare benefits?
Yeah, to answer the last part of your question first, healthcare benefits, no, we're not seeing any change there. But we are seeing some movement in kind of legislative efforts to change this. And Illinois has actually been one of the first states to move forward with these types of efforts. So that's exciting. So we did mention the Learn with Dignity Act, which requires schools to have product in their classrooms. When it comes to SNAP benefits, which is also known as food stamps, and other types of government assistance, it's obviously a big problem that you can't buy the product with these this type of assistance. But we have 3 different Illinois state representatives that have introduced bills around period poverty that are being voted on this spring. And so that is very exciting. Actually, one of these bills were introduced in the past session and didn't move forward. But now House Bill 155, it would allow the purchase of menstrual products through public benefits like SNAP. And this bill passed the Illinois House in April and is moving to the state Senate for a vote. So we're very hopeful that this is going to pass. It would make a huge impact, not just in the work that we do, but for the people that are in a situation where they're choosing between food and period products.
Yeah.
There's another bill, House Bill 156, and it changes the language of the Learn with Dignity Act to require products in every bathroom. And, hopefully at some point they might fund this act, that would really be helpful. But even the awareness of changing the language is huge, we think. There's a third bill, House Bill 310, that requires the product to be available in homeless shelters. Again, this would be a huge deal for those that rely on the shelters, and come there on a regular basis, and just to know that it's available there and have that burden kind of lifted off their shoulders, that would be super helpful. And then the last bill is House Bill 641, which requires the product to be available in bathrooms and administrative buildings in all public colleges and universities.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And this bill also passed the Illinois House last month, and so it will move to the Senate. So we're hopeful that the Senate will pass these bills, and we're really encouraged that 2 of them has passed the House. And this type of legislation really has a huge impact on the issue that we work on, and people's ability to afford the product that they need. And it's worth mentioning too that all 3 of these representatives that introduced the bills are women. And so it really highlights how important it is to elect women to public office. And another thing too is that we're hopeful that passing these types of bills in Illinois will encourage other states also to do the same, and encourage those that are working in this space that it's possible to get this legislation to pass. So one thing that we haven't really talked about is the stigma around the topic of periods, and we feel like passing these types of bills really could help with eliminating kind of the stigma about talking about periods, because if these types of conversations can be had on the floor of the House and the Senate, they can be had in boardrooms to encourage companies to provide these products in their bathrooms. They can be had in places of worship. They can be had in schools and in families and everywhere. So we're really encouraged by what's happening. We encourage everybody to, reach out to their government representatives to tell them that it's important that these types of legislation pass, and just so they are aware that people care about this and people care about this changing.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. If these bills are advancing to the Senate, then that's one really easy and clearly defined way that we can support women who are experiencing period poverty. It's just by find out who your senator is and send an email or leave a voicemail and just let them know that you live in their district and you support these bills and would like to see them passed.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people don't realize, actually how easy it is to access your elected officials. They might not always call you back, but they have to listen to what you want to say.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing all that, because I did not come across that in my research, and that is really, I guess, uplifting a little bit. As we've been kind of talking about this period poverty, it's nice to know that there are some people in our state, at least, who are fighting for a better reality.
Yeah, and don't feel bad that you didn't know, because I actually didn't know until earlier this year, other than the bill that they tried to pass last session. We got actually contacted by that state representative, but the other bills I didn't even know until earlier this year. It's not, information that's, widely available, which is important that we talk about it.
Yeah, and probably not being reported on very, very much at all either.
Yeah.
But I did want to talk about, you had mentioned that it sounds like Illinois is somewhat progressive when it comes to addressing period poverty. And I did find that I believe it was in 2016 that Illinois removed, there was like a 6% tax on period products. And, then, after 2016, that tax had been removed.
Yeah.
So I was curious, if you think that made much of a difference for people experiencing period poverty.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because the city of Chicago actually removed the tax first in 2015, and then the state followed and did it in 2016, which was great. Again, Illinois was one of the first states to remove what they call the tampon tax, or the pink tax.
Yeah.
And a lot of states are working on this. Many states have followed, but a lot of states are still working on this. So I want to say the short answer is yes, it makes a difference. It's kind of ridiculous that these items are considered a luxury or non-essential. Everyone that has a period knows that we can't go without these products. Women don't have a choice in whether or not they have a period, and there's no reason that we should pay a tax on a natural biological process. Mm-hmm. But when you're in a situation where you have to decide whether to buy food or period products, every penny counts.
Yeah.
Every penny counts. And so, yes, it absolutely has an impact. And again, coming back to the whole stigma about periods, and kind of the difficulty that many people have talking about it, or the secrecy that exists still in many cultures, many religious organizations. It helps to normalize periods as something that's natural. It helps anytime, kind of the government, or, any type of official can speak about periods, or say, this is something that's important, or this is something that's happening, for half the population.
Right.
It's helpful in normalizing it, and realizing that, we don't have a choice. This is happening. And also we need to be aware that it can be challenging for some to have the products that they need.
So that kind of is the extent of the questions that I have for you about period poverty awareness. I do want to talk a little bit about the Period Collective specifically, but before we get into that, I just wanted to give you an opportunity, if there's nothing that we've touched on that you think is, important that we should talk about before we kind of move on to kind of more of like uh, the action that's being taken by the Period Collective. I want to give you a chance to, say anything that might still be on your mind.
Yeah, no, I know I keep saying it, but there is unfortunately a lot of stigma still around this topic. And so if if when there's when people are having such a hard time talking about this with their families or the people that they really know, it's we can't really expect there to be a dialogue on change if we still have this stigma around this topic. And so that is one of the things that is important to us as an organization, but I feel is important to us as women, is to normalize this. And I just wanted to tell you an example of what we see. So sometimes we go to these events, like a food pantry type of event or a backpack event where they hand out backpacks and things before the start of school, and we hand out product at these events. And our product, we pack it in very discreet white lunch bags. And sometimes we'll have guys come up to our table because it's not necessarily immediately obvious what we're handing out. And it is really common that they will immediately pivot as soon as they realize that what we have, what we're handing out. Even if they have wives, girlfriends, daughters, moms, anybody in their household that really could use the product, they won't even carry the product in a nondescript bag, even when somebody that they care about need them. And so, another issue that we see with this is that those that are in positions of power and that are able to make decisions about legislation or offering product in an office building, they're often men who don't understand the issue or is not comfortable about talking about it. So, and they just truly, they just truly don't understand what it feels like to not have the product that you need. So I like to talk about the stigma just because this is important. And it's something that everybody can help with in terms of just talking about it and making it more normal.
Yeah, and we kind of have a similar, mindset as an addiction recovery home.
Yeah.
It's the same. There's such a stigma surrounding addiction, but once you, and the same with periods, is once you start to talk about it in a very informal kind of way, everything that makes you feel uncomfortable or any questions you might have that you're hesitant to ask, it just becomes a lot easier. And so we do the same thing. We always encourage our women to just be vocal and be proud, to be in recovery, be proud to be women, and just talk about it, because there's a lot of power in finding your voice. In the same way, if you hold yourself back, it gives everyone else a lot of power over you.
Yeah.
So you just have to take that power back for yourself, and that it starts with just talking, speaking up for yourself and asking for what you need.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the Period Collective.
Okay.
Why don't you just briefly, I shared the mission statement when I gave my introduction, but if you want to just talk really quickly about, what the Period Collective is, kind of what you all are doing to address period poverty.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a 5-year-old organization, and we supply menstrual products to homeless and low-income individuals in the greater Chicago area. And we do this by partnering with organizations that work with these populations directly. So we have about 50 partners at this point. They are organizations like homeless shelters, food banks, social services organizations, transitional housing facilities, schools, employment networks, and really any type of organization that work directly with the clients that we're trying to reach. So our model is very simple. We focus really on getting product in the hands of those that need them. So that is very kind of, in a nutshell, what we do. We are all volunteer at this point still. We have grown a lot in the last year specifically, and due to COVID, because we see that a lot of people have lost their jobs, and the need has just kind of exploded. And so we just donated our 1 millionth product in January, which was a big milestone. But what is interesting is that over 500,000 of those items we distributed last year.
Wow.
Yeah. So that kind of tells you what the situation is like right now. Organizations that we worked with for a long period of time, suddenly they need a lot more product. And once we take on an organization, it's our goal to be able to provide what they need on an ongoing basis, so that the women that use that organization or receive services from them know that when they come there, there's product there for them. And so that they don't have to worry about, where is their product going to come from this month. They know where it's going to come from.
And where do you get the supplies that you're able to donate? Is it mostly just donated by individuals, or do you work with some of these larger brands that actually are producing the products?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the product come from individuals that will donate product to us. And then we're members of the Alliance of Period Supplies, which is kind of a parent organization for a lot of organizations like us all across the US. And their main sponsor is You by Kotex. So we have been getting a lot of donations from You by Kotex, which is just a huge help. And then last year we also got a big donation from Always. So we have been working with different manufacturers to get donations directly from them. But I would say most of the product that we distribute, we purchase ourselves, and we purchase in bulk, and mostly through a company that has been really great with their pricing, so that, when we spend $1, it goes a lot further than, somebody that goes and buys it at Walgreens or something like that.
And what would you say, are the most needed items? Like if somebody's watching today and they want to make a donation, is there some things that you need more than others, or is there anything that you need that maybe would be, unexpected?
Yeah, I mean, we will accept any product that is individually wrapped. So, we are happy with any product that anybody wants to donate. We are usually always in need of overnight pads. Some of the organizations that we work with, if you're living on the street, you want a pad that can absorb as much as possible. So we do get those requests for the heavy pads and the overnight pads. And also we do put those overnight pads in the bags that I talked about earlier that we pack for events and for certain organizations that do request the bags. So overnight pads are always great. But really any pad, any tampon, any liner, we accept wipes. We also accept incontinence products, and we are just now starting to distribute some reusable products, which is which is exciting. We've had a hard time in the past kind of getting acceptance for that, just because it requires kind of a stable living situation where you have access to washing facilities. But, we work with a lot of like transitional housing facilities, and, some of the girls that attend school have, have a more stable living situation where reusable pads and things like that are a real option for them, because they have a place to wash them and dry them and things like that. So lately we have gotten a lot of positive response for that. We actually did receive a bunch of reusable incontinence pads from a company that unfortunately went under because of COVID. But we have had a lot of takers for those, and we recently got a donation of menstrual cups, and in the past, those have, I don't know if people are more just aware of them now, because in the beginning when we first started, we were like, oh, those would be great, then you don't have that kind of recurring cost. But now, when we got this last donation, we've actually had several organizations that have been interested in getting them and distributing them to their clients. So I'm really excited about that. I think, it's a lot more sustainable for those, again, in a more stable living situation. You're not going to boil that on the stove in a homeless shelter, but if you have a more stable living situation, those are a great option.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, if hopefully there's plenty of people watching this today who are really excited about the work that you're doing and want to, get involved. So, the last thing I'd like for you to share is just where people can go to learn more about the Period Collective, to support your work, to learn, how to make a donation. What's the best way for them to reach you?
They can go to our website. We're at theperiodcollective.org. We're also on social media at Period Cole. So those are both good ways. If they want to contact us directly, our email is probably the easiest. That is contact@theperiodcollective.org. And then, if they have specific questions and things like that, we'll be able to answer those. But on our website, it also talks about how to donate or how to get involved under our Get Involved page. So that's the easiest way to get in touch with us. We talked earlier about contacting your government officials. That is a great way to have impact in this space. That it's not directly tied to us, but it's something that is a huge help for those that deal with period poverty. And we are always looking for volunteers. So if anybody's interested in helping us pack bags or make deliveries, things like that, they can contact us at that email or through our website. We have people that run product drives through their work or through their church or any kind of club that they're part of. We have people that do packing parties. So that's an option also to help if those that are interested would like to do that. And then, as I said, we are growing a lot as an organization. So we need help on really every level of our organization. If anybody has any special skills that they would like to contribute, we would love to hear from them.
Perfect. Okay, great. Well, that's all I have for you today. We are almost at our time to finish. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. I know I've learned a lot. I'm sure everyone that's watching has also learned a lot. So thank you for joining me. And also thank you for the work that you're doing. I know Southside Center of Hope has been supported by the Period Collective for quite some time. And all of our staff and all of our residents are very grateful for the products that you've provided us with.
Well, thank you. We are happy to help, but thank you so much for having me, and thank you for these questions, and thank you for being interested in, highlighting this topic. So I appreciate it.
Of course. Well, thank you again. And I will put in the comments of the video, the website, the Period Collective's website, and the email. So hopefully people will be able to reach out to you and show you some support.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Well, thank you again for everyone who joined today. I hope that you enjoyed the conversation. I think that we covered, a lot today. There was a lot of really great information. And also, I think a lot of really great action items of ways that we can, immediately um, get involved and make an impact. So before I go, I just, again, thank you for joining. If you haven't yet, make sure you like our Facebook page so that you can stay connected with us, see what we have going on. You can also subscribe to our notifications so you'll receive updates when we go live or, post new events or anything like that. Like I said earlier, I'll be checking the comments as soon as I'm off of the live stream. If there's any topics that you would like for us to cover in the coming months, let us know in the comments. If you'd like to learn more about Southside Center of Hope, you can visit our website, which is www.sscoh.org. And I will see you all next month on the third Monday of June for our next edition of Hope Talk.